Hello and welcome to the Bobby and Beardy Show. I'm Bobby.
And I'm always Beardy.
It's always
I
Beardy.
interrupted you.
My co-host, Beardy, because I mix it up every time, keeping you on your toes. That's right, I'm Bobby. He's Beardy. And we are here to talk about the horror movie Imaginary. There's time codes below. If you want to skip about, do spoiler-free, spoilers only, do the old switcheroo, whatever you fancy. Also, before we get into anything else, we're on Spotify now. Link in the description.
Yeah.
If you want to have a listen on Spotify, give us a review, 5 stars, please. Yes, thank you. And also, if you're listening on Spotify, there's a link for the YouTube version of this where you can see our handsome faces. So, this will be the first episode, the brand new episode that goes up on there because the other ones are all backdated. So yeah, brilliant. Beardy, how are you doing?
Good, man. It's been a busy month. I think I mentioned that work's been crazy. I think I broke my foot earlier. That's going to be fun. Other than that, not too bad. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. I want to know more about this foot incident. What's happening here?
Just finished with some work stuff today. Did some tidying. Misjudged the size of my living room and kicked a door. And it hurts. It hurts a lot.
Oh, God.
But we'll survive. I've survived worse. So.
Survived worse, everybody. I can attest to that. That just reminds me of when I was a younger man, much younger man, of legal drinking age, and I'd had one or two many beverages, and I rolled out of bed dramatically, probably to go to the toilet or something, I can't remember, and just slammed my little toe into the floor and broke it. And man, that really hurt. Just came flooding back to me, that memory. Delightful stuff.
Always little toe.
Right. Have you been up to any Captain Culture stuff? I feel like we've missed out on the Captain Culture recently from us both.
At the moment, no. Work's been quite busy, so traveling around a little bit, but nowhere particularly fancy. Heading down your way in 2 days. Might actually be able to do a face-to-face thing, maybe. Did I let slip what might happen? Anyway, week after that, I'm in Scotland for a bit, which I'm looking forward to. Haven't been up there for about a year. So I'll have more culture then. Right now, uncultured. You?
I'm also heading to Scotland very soon, so I'll have culture to report back on from my Scotland adventure as well. Any culture? Well, I'll tell you what. The main topic is Imaginary today, the horror film. But I also saw Bob Marley, One Love, the other day in the cinema with Amy. And I thought I'd just give you a quick review of it because we're not going to do a main piece on the show. So basically, Bob Marley, I know nothing about Bob Marley. I'm going to be honest with you. Although I will admit, I actually knew more songs in the movie than I thought I would. I was like, oh, I recognize this. Oh, I know this one too. Oh, and this one as well. Turns out his back catalogue has sunk into my brain over the years, just stealthily. It's fine as a movie. To be honest, it kind of follows this, the normal biopic, musical, documentary vibe, overcomes adversity and stuff. Kind of not to the extremes that others do, like in Bohemian Rhapsody with the whole AIDS thing and raising massive money for Live Aid. That's a real crescendo where they switched around the timelines and stuff to make it happen, which annoyed me a little bit. The movie's fine. What I will say is, having known nothing about the subject at all and only picked up from the bits in the film, I think the Jamaican political scene at the time is actually more interesting than the film itself, because there's a lot of political violence and anger, and it's kicking off big time. The film starts with Bob Marley trying to do a peace concert kind of thing, and survives an assassination attempt. At which point he leaves Jamaica, and to be honest with you, it's mostly just him floating around London recording stuff, which is fine, but there's more interesting stuff happening in Jamaica. And then the climax of the film, it's real life, so there's no spoilers here. This happened. The climax of the film is another peace concert in which he brings the two opposition leaders together in this kind of healing moment. I'm not sure how effective it was because I haven't looked into it, but they both come on stage and they all hold hands and they try and get past the years of political violence and anger and assassinations and murders and stuff. So yeah, I'm far more interested in that as a time period than the actual Bob Marley stuff, if I'm honest with you. And is that a good way to come out of a film? I don't know. Curious about other things isn't necessarily a bad way to leave a film, is it? Whatever. Let's.
Well, just quickly touching on it, I guess some of the music that Bob Marley did would want to draw attention to the politics and how difficult things were. So it kind of does its job. If you come out of the film and think, well, actually, I'm really interested in what happened, it's kind of done its job. Maybe that's the positive spin I'm putting on it.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, there's just a lot of him hanging around in London, just writing music and meeting French dignitaries. And at one point, there's a random argument that kind of comes out of nowhere, and it felt like in what they'd showed me, but it's fine. Anyway, yeah, thumbs up. It's good enough. I enjoyed it.
Good.
Right. Let's get into our main topic of the day, Imaginary. Imaginary is a supernatural horror film directed and produced by Jeff Wadlow, written by Wadlow, Greg Erb, that's Herb without the H, that's like the Americans say, Erb, and Betty Buckley, that's such a like Marvel DC hero name.
It is.
The alliteration alone. Excellent stuff. The film stars Dawn Wise, Tom Payne, Tegan Burns, Piper Braun, Matthew Sato, Veronica Falcon, and Betty Buckley. Where did I get Betty Buckley from? She didn't write it at all. I skipped in my notes. Betty Buckley starring it. It's Wadlow, Greg Erb, and Jason Ormland. I apologize, Jason. I skipped ahead to the starring section. How embarrassing. On a budget of $10 to $12 million dues, not Australian, American. The box office so far, as of today, recording, it's made 14. So it's broken even on the budget. Just about.
Mm-hmm. It's not been that long, to be fair.
This is where I have to admit that I haven't seen it. I hate scary movies and I'm a big coward. So this conversation is going to be led entirely by McBeardy. So, McBeardy, without further ado, what's it about?
So it follows a lot of traditional horror tropes. It's your standard child has an imaginary friend. No one believes her. It's all very cute. Suddenly weird stuff starts happening.
Not good.
And hilarity ensues, basically. That's how it works.
Hilarity, you say?
Hilarity, yeah. Some of it is very funny. This is kind of the thing with horror, I would say, that a lot of times where things try to be scary, they do it in a way that it doesn't really work, and comedy does come from it. There is an element of that, which, again, I think a lot of horror films do. I do like how they've tried to take a traditional horror storyline and add elements to it, twist it, so it has a familiar feel, but isn't what you expect. There were a couple of twists in it that genuinely I didn't see coming. Some parts that I really liked, quite a lot of parts that I'm not such a fan of. But I would like to premise this with, I think horror is my favorite genre, so I've watched significantly more horror films than anything else.
Polar opposite of me.
Well, yeah, I've got quite a high bar when it comes to horror. Like, I may not be the most technically knowledgeable or well versed, but I've seen a lot of films. I know what I like. And you know what? I didn't dislike this, but it doesn't reign up as like the highest I've ever seen. It wasn't 2 hours badly spent, basically. And yeah, some twists at the end, which we'll discuss in the spoiler section. Did do a good job with me. I didn't have that bitter taste of, well, every horror film ends like this. It was all right. I quite enjoyed it.
Excellent. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, I must admit, horror isn't the only genre that when it tries to take itself seriously, it can be unintentionally funny, which can either save a film or break a film. Depending on if you're laughing at it or more with it.
Yeah.
What was it? Which of those two options was Imaginary?
I think it did try to take itself seriously, but I honestly don't know. I all the way through I thought this is trying to be a fantastic horror film, and again it does a good job. I don't dislike any part of it, but then it throws some of the scares a little bit too early. It shows too much a little bit too early. I like a psychological effect. At the end of the day, your imagination is always going to be worse than something you've seen. Once you've seen it, you know what you're dealing with. If you haven't seen it, you can conjure up anything. And I would have liked a film called Imaginary to have a bit more open for imagination.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. What was that game we played? You made me play a horror game years ago. You just wanted me to watch it because I'm a big wuss. What was that?
Yeah, I think it was Until Dawn.
That's the one where you made choices and
yes,
they reflected later on.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
And the bit I was scared of in sitting in the middle of it was like 30 degrees in your house at the time. We were in shorts and t-shirts trying to not sweat too much. Was the psychological aspects, because in that the game, which is ancient now, there's lots of home intruder stuff, which I personally don't find very nice at all. I'm like, no, thank you. Spooky dookums, no, thank you. But then it switches later to here's some monsters, and I'm like, well, this is just monsters now. I can do whatever.
Weirdly, I'm the opposite way around. So I don't mind a home invasion thing. Again, I might be overestimating my worth here. Someone breaks into my house, I like my odds. 2 people, okay. Multiple people, I'm probably done. But it's all very realistic, and I can deal with that. The thing I like about horror is if you go down like The Grudge, The Ring, it's an entity you can't do anything about. You're completely powerless. That takes all of that, well, I can deal with this away. And I like a horror that you can't deal with. So things like The Strangers, where it is a home invasion, you know what? I'm not going to have a fun time of it, but I can deal with it a little bit.
I'm not going to give her 5 stars on TripAdvisor. Oh dear. What were the acting performances like? Because sometimes, I mean, it's a little kid in it. It's one of the main stars. Sometimes that's a bit ropey-dopey as well. So good performances all around, or?
Yeah, so there's a high bar set with children in horror. I can't remember her name, Jodelle something, Jodelle Ferland. She was in a lot of horror films, things like Case 39, the Silent Hill movie. The kid they have in this, the young kid who's supposed to be about 5, she does a very good job, actually. She's probably one of the better performances. It has your standard sort of family trope in a horror, so again, no spoilers here, but father has broken up with wife for whatever reason, again, I'm not going to spoil, has a teenage daughter, young daughter, and a new potential stepmother. Your child's very, very cute, and then suddenly weird things happen, but they're like, oh, it's a kid, nothing bad's gonna happen, which always wrong. The surly teenage daughter does a good job of, well, you're not my real mum, but then we sit around nearing the end. The parents again do a decent enough job, but it just feels a little bit more forced, and that really kind of let me down because Tom Paine is an outstanding actor, and again, I'm not saying he did badly in this, but if you compare it against his roles in The Walking Dead and Prodigal Son, which is an outstanding series, which I recommend people watch. Yeah, he didn't do a bad job in it, but if I'm honest, the kid did the best acting. There's also an older character who comes in about halfway through, probably the least believable of the lot, but necessary for driving the story. So yeah, I think the acting wasn't the issue. I think that I don't want to say that it had a low budget, but compared to the films we've seen recently, it has had a low budget. But some of the creature designs were less than impressive. Some of the stuff you see nearing the end is very reminiscent of One Missed Call, which is a 2008 movie, so it's 15 years old, and the creature design isn't really any better in my opinion. Which again took me a little bit out of it. It adds a bit more of a comedy element to it, because once I saw that, I was like, well, all scariness has gone to me. But again, that's me, someone who's a huge horror fan.
It's got a budget of 10 to 12 from what I could find online, which for it's a Blumhouse, semi Blumhouse production at least.
Yes.
Which I think is roughly right for my understanding of Blumhouse productions. They like to do it on the I mean, we're talking millions, but they like to do it on the cheap. And then make the money because they've done less. So that's, I mean, a reason why it might not look great, but I know they've done better work, it sounds like anyway.
Was kind of my point. Some of the stuff they've done with similar or maybe slightly less budget has been better. And again, like the production value is good. The shots are really clean. Set design stuff looks fantastic. It's just some of the creature designs again that took me out of it. Set design stuff, when you get to the second half of the movie, which again, not going to spoil, it looks like maybe a lot of the budget went on that, because it does a lot with a little bit. I'm trying not to spoil this early on, but it does a lot with the limited space. And again, it does a really good job of using a liminal space to add this sort of confusion and bit of fear to it, which is good. Yeah, I think a lot of it went on that, but for me, the creatures then let it down. Maybe one of the creatures was pretty good, but the other 2, 3-ish, not so much.
I'm surprised to hear there's more than one creature in it. From my understanding of the trailer, it was one entity. As a man who's only seen the trailer, I feel like I can throw vacancies out there. There's a bear that is it's an evil bear. It's got a spirit inside it. Naughty bear.
Not even that.
And it used to be the mum's bear, and then mum left it in the basement like an hole. To be honest with you, and now they're back in the house, and the bear's like, "You, mum." Is that my first swear on the podcast?
It might be.
Oh, bleep that.
I know. How does that bleep it? Yeah, bleep
I'm not
it.
bleeping that. Bleeping is too much effort. I'm not doing it. So
the thing is,
yeah, I thought it was like one. I'll say demon for lack of one spirit with a particular grudge. So now there's more monsters involved. I'll be curious to what you say about that in spoilers.
Yeah. So this is kind of it. Like I went into the film thinking the exact same thing, and the fact that isn't the storyline. Again, that's not a spoiler. It's just saying that go in with an open mind. The fact that isn't the storyline. Again, I like the fact that you don't know everything as you go in. Loads of films now, you see the best 20 scenes in the trailer, and then the rest of the hour and a half is useless.
Drives me mad. These 2 to 3 minute trailers where they show huge chunks of like all the scenes, and then they leave nothing. They leave nothing for the rest of the film. The Iron Man 2 trailer is famous for showing that moment where Tony Stark gets the Iron Man suit out of a suitcase before it was just all nano, and he just did that on his chest and was like, I've got Iron Man suit on now. I'm Superman. Well, not Superman, obviously. Superman. Different product. And they showed that in full in the trailer. So when it happened in the cinema, everyone was like, all right, cool. Yeah. Seen this. And they do it all the time in other films. Like the Fall Guy with Ryan Gosling, that trailer I've seen in the cinema is so long, and if they've left nothing else in that film, I'm really furious because I'm really excited for it, but it's also a really long trailer, so it might be I've seen all the highlights.
But when it comes to horror films, I think they're polar opposites. Like you'll either, for example, The Nun. I like the whole Conjuring series. The Nun itself, I don't mind as a horror film, but The Nun 2 showed 90% of its good bits in the trailer, whereas other horror films, they do very much leave it to imagination, like just tease what's going to happen and see what's going to happen. And I prefer that a lot. Like again, Nun 2 I did enjoy, but there was one part of it that I enjoyed that I hadn't already seen.
Yeah, I prefer that about films in general. Like, give me a vibe, give me a sense of what I'm expecting, maybe a hint of some story, but don't go crazy. But mostly the vibe, and keep it short as well. Like don't like interest me, but don't show me everything.
I swear they used to be called teaser trailers. Now they're just like cinematic releases.
Well, you've got a teaser for the teaser, and then you've got trailer 1, trailer 2, trailer 5. Just keep saying like I've seen every scene at this point. It feels like so. Yeah, it drives me mad. So as a story as a whole. No spoilers. Did you enjoy the story that was presented to you, even if the CGI kind of monsters let it down a bit later?
Yeah, it was an interesting twist on an old narrative. Again, I think that most horrors fall into that, like one of 10 storylines, and it's just how can you adapt it. But they did a good job of it, and yeah, I enjoyed my time there. But it isn't the best film I've seen. It's not the best horror film I've seen, but not enough to say it was a bad film.
Cool. Do you have anything else spoiler free you want to say?
I think with this, it's very difficult to do spoiler free because I want a lot of people who haven't seen it, and if they're going to stick to the spoiler free stuff because they haven't seen it, to get the same level of shock and unexpectedness that I had. So I think a lot of it has to now be spoiler side and just let people watch it if they want to watch it.
Cool. All right. So thumbs up, thumbs down.
Can I do a middle-ish?
No, you've got to choose. Okay. Same rules as my Discord. You've got to pick a side, buddy.
It leans a little bit more to a thumbs up. Like I said, I didn't disenjoy.
I didn't disenjoy it.
I didn't disenjoy it. It was fine. It was an interesting twist, as I said, but it wasn't. I look for fear. I want to be scared. I've wanted to for a decade now. I think I've said.
Yeah.
And I'm really struggling, and this didn't even come close. But it was interesting enough that I enjoyed it.
Okay, so it's just about sneaking into the thumbs up territory.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I'm giving it a thumbs down because it's a horror film and I haven't seen it and it's scary probably. All right, let's move straight on into spoilers then. Let's get that on screen. Boom! Beardy, hit me with some spoilers.
Okay, so it takes your standard childhood imaginary friend, but the story is multi-layered. There's twists to it that, again, I didn't see coming. The ending section kind of does a butterfly effect descent, sort of. It ends, but it didn't end, but it ends again. Which, again, I generally didn't think that was going to happen. I thought it was going to be a very simple one-layered horror and just done. I will explain that more for anyone who hasn't seen these horrors, which I assume you haven't.
I was going to say, these are very spoiler-free spoilers we're talking about right now.
I didn't want to just jump to the end, but as we're on the topic of it, basically, the idea is this imaginary friends as a whole are just like these benign spirits that look after kids. But once they get abandoned, some of them can go bad.
Some, but not all. That's interesting. Yes. Because I was going to say, there's a lot of imaginary friends around. So if they all went bad, then... Ooh.
Yeah. There are some that are just generally there to look after kids, and as they get older, things go apart. That's absolutely fine. Some of them attach too strongly. They feed off the kids' imagination. And usually, again, it will follow a natural course of they get older, imagination drops off, they move on to their next thing because they're not feeding off it anymore, pretty much. But in this situation, the new mother-in-law, no, stepmother, she got pulled away from her imaginary friend because of mother's death. Father couldn't look after her. The spirit turned a bit dark anyway. And it kind of didn't get to finish, and it stayed in the house. They eventually, years later, get drawn back because the father at the beginning, her original dad, he moves into a assisted living. They go back with the young kids. The young kid latches onto this imaginary friend. Now, what I like about this is the bear doesn't exist. Yeah.
The bear itself is imaginary.
The bear itself is imaginary.
What?
Which is a great plot twist, which they do in the film. So when the mum, Jess, when she's younger, she sees this bear. She calls it Chauncey Bear. CB becomes a thing. They come back later. The daughter, Alice, she sees this bear, starts playing with it. No one else sees the bear. Everyone just sees her picking up nothing and moving it around. And they mention this, they reference this. They actually go back and show this. I was recording, nothing is there. And it's this shock moment for Jess, the mum in this, as she realizes that she's now seeing it again as well. Now, obviously, there are times when Chauncey, this imaginary friend, is protecting Alice, trying to wean her to his dark side, and he does appear to someone that's potentially going to harm Alice. And it's a good scene, but it does fit into a lot of the horror tropes. So again, this is sort of possessed bear item. That is in every horror film. Again, cute, creepy little girl in every horror film. Surly teenage daughter, every horror film. New house, possessed house, every horror film. When they go into I'm actually going to have to explain this now as well. Alice gets taken by the imaginary friend, and they go to this imaginary world where there's tons of doors and it's fed by children's imagination, and a lot of the budget looks like it was spent there. It's actually pretty good. You know those paintings where there's stairs and doors everywhere? It's kind of that.
The Escher. Is that the artist? Escher?
I'm going to say yes.
Right.
Anyway, they go there, and again, a few more sort of horror bingo things get ticked. Creepy person standing in the dark in the corner. They do take some inspiration from some others. So there's a little it's like a child's toy that puts light pictures on the wall as it spins, which is kind of creepy.
Oh yeah.
And then there's a cutout section of a bear that lines up with a picture of a bear, and suddenly Chauncey's there, but he's massive and he's scary. Which, again, The Conjuring did very well with the nun as she kind of shadow pans around and gets to the painting. I'm not saying they stole it from there. I like it as an aspect. It's really good. But at that point, when you see Chauncey Bear as a big, scary creature, not scary at all. Like, no, nothing.
Would you have preferred the film if the bear had a spookier name, like Scary McSpookington or something like that?
No, I kind of like a normal name.
I can't believe you're giving me a genuine answer to what's clearly the stupidest comment I've made on the podcast so far.
Oh, I take horror seriously.
Oh dear. Is there a scene, I think it's in the trailer, where the kid's going to put their hand on a nail to hurt themselves?
Yes.
Does it go in, or does it not go in?
No, so it gets stopped.
Coward.
And it turns out that obviously this spirit or spirits like it are kind of everywhere, because there's proof of kids doing this globally in the film. But basically to go to this other place, the Escher painting place that they call the Never Ever in this, which is like the Upside Down, and it's like the Further. In horror films give it names all the time. They have to do a scavenger hunt of things, and one of them is something that makes me happy, something that makes me sad, something that hurts. And she decides to rip off a fence panel with a nail in it and try and slam a hand down on it.
Well, we've already learnt from this conversation, though. You just roll out of bed when drunk and hurt your toe, or kick your sofa when you're tidying up.
100%. Yeah.
What are you doing with these fences? It's just a bit, just over-engineered, isn't it? Just pinch yourself really hard. Come on.
No, it needs to really hurt. Like this again, they reference this that like.
Oh, there's a scale.
One of them. Yeah. Because Jess, the mum in this, she has to stab. She stabs her hand with scissors, and it's not enough of a hurt. Which then she just verbally assaults the teenage daughter, and that hurts enough apparently. So
hang on a bloody mo. Sticks and stones, McBeardy.
Yeah.
Etc.
But words last forever.
Words? They actually hurt more than scissors. Turns out.
Apparently.
Dear, oh dear. Dear.
Yeah, like I say, it was an interesting twist, and I think some of the twists, like say the mum not knowing that the bear was fake, and then suddenly seeing that, and it was a flashback to all the scenes where she'd seen it but hadn't seen it. They have this older character that was the mum's babysitter when she was younger, who saw what happened when she was younger, dedicated her life to finding out what happened. Is how we know about imaginary friends being real entities. She then helps them get into this.
Sounds kooky.
Never. She really is, and the acting isn't outstanding, which might actually help the situation. She helps them get to the Never Ever, and then instantly goes, "I'm going to help the imaginary friends," and then locks them in there. Which is
so she is. Yeah. Oh dear. No, that's not
a little bit of a turncoat. Instantly dies, which
good, deserved. Screw you.
It just sounds like she walks next to a door. The door bashes open. A bear gets her and rips her apart effectively. At this point, we don't know it's Scary Bear. It sounds like normal bear.
You just got to watch out for those bears and doors, basically.
Basically.
There could be a door behind any bear, or vice versa. Or you could open a bear and with a door inside, and there's another bear, like Russian dolls, but with doors. Yeah. Disaster. Oh dear, oh dear.
I guess the last bit for the spoilers that I like to kind of touch on is the fact that you do the standard. They find Alice. She's being kind of brainwashed to stay here so it can feed off her imagination. They get through to her. They use her imagination to make a door to get out. Everything kind of goes pretty well. It turns out that the mum's dad, so the step granddad in this, I guess, gave up his sanity and kind of turned the way he is, saving his daughter back in the day. She goes to the hospital, reading him a story. It sounds really, really nice. And then suddenly it turns out, they're still there, and they're using this to trick her. Like, so she's still stuck in the place.
Oh, no.
Which, again, I expected it to be a happy ending finish, which I'm not a big fan of in horror films. I like to see some misery.
So they got you, basically. You were hoodwinked, bamboozled,
absolutely
flabbergasted.
But then it turns out all you need to do is run into the room with a hockey stick and crack someone's head in, and you can get away again.
Well, I find that solved most of my problems, actually. So
exactly, yeah. But like I say, some interesting twists, some decent acting from some parts, not so much on the other. Nice twists. It was just mainly the creatures that let me down. Like I say, there's the point where there's like twisted versions of characters, and they just have big black eyes.
Do you reckon it was the wrong choice to have those creatures and not have more possessed people? I mean, you've just told me earlier that you don't really mind the house invasion stuff. Like, I would find that spookier to have somebody possessed, going mad, trying to do big stabs on whatever. But do you reckon they've just made the wrong choice with having the monsters that then didn't look quite right?
No. So I tried to justify it in the fact that it might be what a child might find scary.
Oh, that's an interesting way of thinking about it.
Which I don't know if that's the case, but I'd like to think it is. But they do this standard thing of like just behind in the shots, there's always a person there, a creature there, and again, you don't see enough, but it doesn't do a good job of adding that dread. And then as soon as you see the bear as a creature, he's massive teeth, giant arms, all mangled. It doesn't really sell it. These creatures with the big eyes doesn't really do it.
Yeah, this seems like one of those films where you enjoyed it, but when you want to talk about it, you're focusing. There's a lot to critique, but overall you enjoyed it.
Which is 100%. I think we discussed this before. Like it's
so Argyle was I enjoyed Argyle at the time, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, ooh, a bit ropey dopey. And so I think that's like the third time I've said ropey dopey this episode. Word of the day. All right, Beardy, any final thoughts? Because we're going to wrap up.
No. Honestly, like I say, I think if you like a horror, or maybe you're not heavily into horror, it'll do a good job for you. If you know sort of horror backstories, you'll be interested in how it progresses. Don't expect to be massively scared, but it was an enjoyable hour 45.
Fantastic. All right then, chat. Too much Twitch streaming. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye-bye. Goodbye.